Hello, people of YouTube. Hello, Silver Stackers. Hello, Coin Roll Hunters. Welcome to my little corner of the internet. This is Michael from Pennyhaven, and first off, if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button, then give it a like, then come back over here and hit that bell icon so you know when my new videos come out. All right, here it is. It's that time finally. Oh, Canada, my home and native land. It's not my home, but it is home to a good friend of mine, Scott Gust. A shout out to Scott up there in law school. He's from Saskatchewan. All right, so yes, Canadian coinage. I've had a couple of requests for this, specifically from Jack Attack, so here it is, Jack Attack. And I also have a big thank you to send out to Brad Neely, another viewer of the channel. Brad and I were introduced by a mutual friend, Yuval. Turns out that Brad works 25 feet from my desk, and I had no idea there was another coin collector that close to me in my department. So Brad knew that I was doing this video, and he let me borrow his entire folder full of Canadian coinage. I already had a stack of things I wanted to go into, and I've got some nice examples, but I had nowhere near the time or money to collect the amazing things that Brad has in his collection. So I'm going to get to share with you so much more than had he not offered to do so. So thank you, Brad. Okay, so in 1858, Canada switched over to decimal coinage, which is what we have here in the United States as well. It means it's based on increments of 10, for the most part, deca. So that means, a dime, 10 dimes in a dollar, 100 cents in a dollar. So before that, they relied on UK coinage, which does not follow that system, and also bank tokens, things like that. What I have here is an 1852 Upper Canada bank token, a half-penny bank token. And then when it switched over to the decimal system, it's technically a 1 cent piece, but having used British coinage previously, that's just a holdover from calling it a penny, so people will still call it a penny. I've got a few facts and figures here. The first coinage started in 1858, and they had a large 1 cent piece from 1858 to 1920. And the breakdowns of the monarchs goes like this, and this will cover all of the coinage, so I'm only going to go through this once. We had Victoria from 1858 to 1901. We had Edward VII from 1902 to 1910. Then George V, the large version from 1911 to 1920, and the small version of the penny from 1920 to 1936. Then in 1936, he abdicated the throne, and George VI took up the throne, and he was on the coin from 1937 to 1952. Then we have Queen Elizabeth II, 1953 to 2012 for the penny. That was the last year that they minted the penny. But she's, of course, on the other coins to the present. And I'm going to show you a few more examples here. This was the last year of Queen Victoria on the 1 cent piece, 1901. Then here is, this is Edward VII, 1903 version right here. And then the 1914, we have George V. It's a very nice looking one, actually. And then the next example I have is in 1924, George V. This is the small version. So they switched over in 1920 to the small cent. There's that one. Okay. And there's an ultra rarity out there. There are only 3 known iterations of this coin out in circulation that have been changing hands in the 6 figures over the past couple decades, and that is called the dot cent. So in 1936, when George V abdicated the throne to marry a divorced American named Wallace Simpson, he abdicated the throne, so they weren't quite ready with the coinage. So to indicate that it was going to be, to make up for the shortage they were expecting, they put a dot, just basically tapped into the die to indicate that this was minted in 1937, but we're still using the 1936 designation to stockpile some while we wait for the new obverse to be created. Now they ended up not needing that stockpile, so most of them were melted down. And there are only three known certified examples of the dot cent 1937. Minted in 37, marked 36. Okay, so we're going to pick back up during World War II, and the next example I have is a George VI 1 cent, and now it has the very recognizable double maple leaf reverse, which it had until the end of its run. Then we switched over in 52, I believe 52. 53 was the first year for Queen Elizabeth II. This is a 1955 example. And now I want to show you this. I was very excited about. I've mentioned this in some other videos previously, but I found this coin roll hunting, and it's though it's not nearly my most valuable find, it might be my favorite find just because it's so gorgeous. This is a 1964, almost uncirculated Canadian, and it's a young head still. The young head was the first portrait of Queen Elizabeth II to be used on the coinage. And then we've got some other varieties. We have the Canadian Centennial, 1867 to 1967. They stopped making the penny in 2012, and they were deemed, not valid coinage anymore in 2013. So they're being taken up and recycled in vast amounts. So it's making them more and more rare. So holding on to very good examples I think that's going to be a great strategy going forward. Initially, these were a high silver content coin, and then in 1922 they were first struck in nickel. Hence the name nickel. But when they were silver, they were just a smaller silver coin. They were called a fish scale, a 5 cent piece. And the Canadian Mint has been gathering up the pre-82 99.9 nickels and melting them down. So that's something definitely worth holding on to. So I've got some great examples here. A couple of mine, mostly from Brad. Brad has a first year 1858, small date, Victoria, 5 cent piece. Right. And then we've got a 1910, which is the last year of Edward VII. Right there. And then the first year of George V. We've got the 1913. Oh, this one's mine, the 1913. Just got this one recently. And you see they've got this reverse here. I'll put an insert in, you can see it better. Then we've got 1938 right here with George VI, and it has the familiar beaver reverse. So that's what you're going to see today as well. Then this one is very interesting. 1943 through 1945, they released what was called a V nickel, or a victory nickel, to inspire people to victory in World War II. And it has the not completely round but kind of squared off edges, more like a sixpence. And the reverse here has that V with a torch in the middle, 1945. This is 1945 version, and it has a very cool little addition on the edge. It says in Morse code, "We win when we work willingly." That is printed in Morse code on the edge of this coin, which is just very, very cool. An inspiring coin. Then we go on to the Queen Elizabeth II version, and she also had a squared edges version, but I moved past that to the familiar round version, with, of course, the beaver on the reverse. This one is in very nice condition. It says 1963. Okay, so that's kind of a quick rundown of the 5 cent pieces. Okay, so on to the dimes. All right, so the first example I have here is one of mine. This is a 1914 10 cent piece, and that has George V on it, and the reverse has a crown, and it says 10 cents Canada and then the year. The next example I have is a 1940 George VI, and this one has the changed reverse. It's got that familiar ship on there. This is a schooner. I believe it's called the Blue Nose, and you'll see that on the reverse for decades. Right. I have an 80% silver 1960 Queen Elizabeth. Then I have another centennial variety here. This is the 1867-1967. And on the reverse, holy mackerel. It's a mackerel. There we go. A fish on the reverse. I can't think of any coinage from the United States that's ever had a fish on it. Wait, yes I can. Alright, some of the state quarters there you can find fish. Alright, see, I quickly proved myself wrong. Thought I was going to be a funny guy and make a joke. Nope, the coinage proved me wrong. Okay, so now we're on to the Canadian quarter. The Canadian quarter wasn't minted all the way back in 1858 when they started with the pennies and other things. It was not minted first until 1870, and it's minted all the way through to today. And here's a breakdown of the metals used over the years. 1870 to 1919 was 92.5% silver. 1920 to 67 was 80% silver. And they changed the reverse to the caribou in 1937. And they also changed it from 23.62 millimeters to 23.88 millimeters in 1953, just a little bit of a size increase. Now, in comparison, the United States quarter is 24.26 millimeters. Not that size is everything, it's just that ours is bigger. And then 67-68 was a 50-50 silver copper mix, and that's a special coin. I can't wait to show you that one. It's my favorite coin that I've come across during this process. And then 68 to 99, 999 nickel, and then 2000 to present was 94% steel, nickel plated. And once again, they're melting down all those nickel quarters whenever they grab them up, so grab those up if you can find them. Even though they're just nickel, they are going to be worth more just because of the reduction of the ones in circulation. Okay, so here are the coins that I have to show you. First, I have a 1910 Edward VII. This was his last year. It's a little worn, and it's got that familiar reverse that they had on a lot of their early coinage with the crown and Canada and the number of cents contained therein. This is a 1919, and this is important because this was the last year that it was 92.5% silver. And this is George V with that same reverse. Then we have a 1943 with George VI. Like I said, in 37 they changed to the caribou reverse. There's that, which they still have to this day. Then this is that one that I told you I was very excited to show you. This, they have the 1867 to 1967 centennial celebration coins, and they have different animals on the backs of all of them. They're very cool. There was the mackerel previously, and the goose, I believe it is, on the 1 cent piece, and this one has a Canada lynx. It's just an awesome coin. I love that. And it's, of course, Queen Elizabeth II on the front. So I need to find one of these for myself. This is, like I said, 50-50 silver copper blend just for this 1 year. And it's cool. It does have a nice look to it. Like that. So those are all the examples I have to show you. Now, again, with the Canadian quarter, just like the United States quarter, they have used that more than any other coin for variations. So they're just too many to show. Just like we have all of our state quarters and national park quarters, America the Beautiful, all these things like that. They have some to celebrate so many different anniversaries and provinces and things. It's so many variations. I can't show all of them to you. I don't have examples of them, and Brad only had a few examples. So, all right, well, that brings us to the end of this video, actually. There is more to show, but I'm going to break it off into a separate video down the road, a continuation that's going to cover the 50-cent pieces, $1, $2 coins, the loonies, things like that, and also Newfoundland currency, different provincial coins like that. So I'm going to make that into a separate video because I want you to get that information, and this is getting long here. I don't want you to have tuned out. All right, well, if you haven't tuned out by now, thank you so much for watching. This was a labor of love. I really enjoyed getting into all these coins and learning as much as I did about this. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. Hey, share my video. Why not? Let someone else know. Michael from Penny Haven, happy hunting.